To discuss this, we're joined now by Maung Zarni. He is the coordinator of the Free Rohingya Coalition and a fellow with the Genocide Documentation Center of Cambodia. Good to have you on the Newsmakers again. And in Manila, we have Tom Villarin. He's a Filipino congressman and a member of the ASEAN Parliamentarians for Human Rights. Gentlemen, thanks again. Maung Zarni, ASEAN met in Singapore last month. They had a chat. They came out with a statement. Tell me why it wasn't good enough for you.
Well, ASEAN has a genocide that the UN fact-finding mission described as still ongoing. And, this has been going on in terms of the violent aspect for the last 6 years since 2012. In terms of structural persecution of the Rohingya, it has been going on for 40 years. You are the regional organization with 10 member states, including Burma or Myanmar. You have a genocide in your backyard, and all you could do is this, a non-binding statement.
Right.
And so it's complete failure. And this failure is in keeping with ASEAN and its tradition of whitewashing genocide. Going back to 1979, Khmer Rouge, the genocide. ASEAN helped whitewash that genocide.
Okay, so Tom Villarin, right? Why is ASEAN so spineless? You have the UN report in August that comes out. It uses the word genocide. It's not just activists like Maung Zarni using the word genocide. You have the Holocaust Memorial Museum using the word genocide. And then ASEAN comes out and says, oh, we're deeply concerned about what's going on. And we ask Myanmar to investigate itself, essentially. That's hopeless, isn't it?
Well, I think the ASEAN leaders have failed the Rohingya people and, of course, the ASEAN peoples. No? Because as we all know, that the situation in the region, like here in the Philippines, our president is himself caught up with the possibility of being charged with crimes against humanity because of his drug war that has killed more than 20,000 Filipinos. No? So we have a situation in the region right now that our leaders are not in the best position, nor in a moral position to criticize what's happening in Myanmar. No? And precisely because of these leaders who are in themselves dictators and fascists, to say the least, is reflective of a bigger problem in the region. But these are challenges that
Right.
ASEAN leaders face.
Okay, so let me go to Maung. Maung, ASEAN can't really fiddle and can't look inward because once you start with one, you have to start with all, and then it will be a big, hot mess. Do you accept that argument?
Yes, because just about every ASEAN member state has skeletons in their closet, And so they would not want to open this issue of criminality that one of their member states is committing up. But also, I think ASEAN is ideologically completely flawed in the sense that ASEAN has never front-loaded the rights and well-being of the human individuals, 500 million of us living in the region. It has been, in fact, known as a club of autocrats. If you look at 10 member states, with the exception of Malaysia and Indonesia, the rest are autocratic states run by cronies and mafia-like regimes.
Is it simple for me, and maybe I should ask this to Tom. Tom, is it too simplistic for me to see it as, well, if you look at it, it might be the one group of states who happen to be Muslim-majority countries feel more sympathy for the Rohingya because they're Muslims, so they're going to push a bit more, and the others don't care as much, and they're more worried about their business partner, Myanmar, that's coming from the cold, and they don't want to upset them. Is it that simple?
No, I don't think we should see it more as just as a religious issue, but it's a humanity, it's a crisis of humanitarian proportion, and all ASEAN peoples, regardless of race or religion, should be concerned and make not just a statement, but also to seek the interventions needed by their own governments. No? So even for us in the Philippines, while we do have Muslims in the southern Philippines, we also feel what's happening in Rohingya, not just because what's happening also in the Philippines is also a cause of concern for the ASEAN region. So we should look at it from the perspective of the ASEAN peoples.
Certainly, and that's how I think people would want these governments to look at it. But again, just looking at the facts, the Muslim majority countries being a bit harsher when it comes to their talk about Myanmar, and the others not saying anything. Is there something to that, Mo?
No, that's not necessarily true, because you know, in Indonesia has been one of the most reluctant members of the OIC when it comes to Burma issue, because Indonesia itself has economic interest in Burma.
Money over brotherhood.
Yeah, exactly. And also, like, you know, there are four major investors in Burma, leading, the leader of the pack is China, and followed by Thailand and Singapore and Hong Kong.
Right.
But Hong Kong's not part of it. But on the question of, like, you know, the Muslim countries pushing this issue farther than any other, the rest of the ASEAN Pac. That's not true, because if you look at 1979 genocide, at the time ASEAN original members were only 4 of them, and the Buddhist majority, the Cambodian majority were Buddhist. They were decimated, 30% of the population was decimated by the Khmer Rouge communist regime. And in those days, like Singapore was leading the effort to whitewash Khmer Rouge regime, post facto genocide. And the United States and United Kingdom seated Khmer Rouge at the at the UN General Assembly as the sole representative.
Okay.
So this is not about religion.
Okay.
This is about human beings.
And it's good that you bring in that historical context. Just once again, looking at what came out of Singapore, when they said they want the Independent Commission of Inquiry, which was established by Myanmar's government, to carry out an independent and impartial investigation of the allegations of human rights violations and related issues, and hold those responsible fully accountable. In and of itself, nobody can disagree with that when you say, well, listen, we want accountability, we want responsibility. Do you accept, given the shackles of geopolitics and how these institutions are, that that's the best you're going to get from ASEAN as things stand?
Well, I think that the ASEAN has to look forward rather than being stuck in this geopolitics. Yeah, and also, like, you know, Aung San Suu Kyi and the Burmese military have set up at least half a dozen inquiries. You know, like, it's like asking Nazi SS to look into the crimes of the genocide committed against the Jews at Auschwitz and other places. Look, I mean, the fact is, we do not need any more facts. You know, I was one of the very first academic authors who looked at this issue and published a peer review article 4 years ago saying this is genocide.
Right.
4 out of 5 acts of genocide have been committed with the intent to destroy this community. That is what has been repeated. Study after study, at least 6 studies from Yale University, like Queen Mary University in London, now Holocaust study, Holocaust Museum. And then so we don't need any more facts. What we need is action. And ASEAN is failing intellectually, ideologically, and morally.
Okay, so Tom Villarin, if ASEAN's been a failure on this particular issue, maybe it's good for other things in the region, but when it comes to the human rights of those Rohingya people suffering at the hands of Buddhist nationalists and Myanmar's military and so on, does it need to be somebody else who steps in, some other transnational body, but definitely not ASEAN? Is that the reality?
ASEAN could still try, no? Because this is the biggest crisis that faced the regional bloc since its founding in 1967. And we cannot just set this aside. No? And we have also to make our own leaders accountable for what's happening in Rohingya. No? So ASEAN should not say that we can't handle this crisis, because precisely it's happening in its own backyard. China might be there, India might put pressure, or Bangladesh, other countries outside the region can put pressure. But ASEAN, as a regional bloc, should confront this head on, and not just say that it cannot do something, because this will make or break the regional bloc. Because ASEAN also has to relate with international bodies. It has commitments with the international community, and doing nothing with regards to Rohingya will really affect the standing of ASEAN. So countries like Singapore Singapore also has this moral accountability because business, I mean, the Rohingyan generals and some of the top officials who are doing this genocide, no, put their money in the banks of Singapore. So pressure must also be put, no, on specific countries as well as the regional bloc.
Listen, gentlemen, I have to move on, but it's been a pleasure having you on the Newsmakers. Tom S. Villarin from the Philippines and Maung Zarni, good to have you on the show once again.
Thank you.